What if that thick black charcoal toothpaste you're using to scrub your way to a Hollywood smile is actually
Then, yeah,
right? What if it's actually guaranteeing your teeth will turn permanently, irreversibly yellow?
it is such a scary thought.
It really is. So welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are investigating something practically everyone has considered at some point.
Hmm.
I mean, whether you're, prepping for a major presentation, getting ready for a wedding, or just spending way too much time analyzing your reflection in the bathroom mirror,
We've all been there.
we really have. We are talking about teeth whitening.
And, it's a topic surrounded by just an incredible amount of misinformation, which is really what makes today's source material so valuable for us.
Yeah, tell them what we're looking at today.
So we're pulling from this highly detailed clinical brief. It's provided by Westbrook Family Dental, which is a clinic based out of Toowoomba and Westbrook.
Right.
And they've laid out the precise mechanics of how dental bleaching actually works and, honestly, more importantly, how it doesn't work.
Exactly. So our mission today is to decode the actual science of dental bleaching, separate the clinical reality from all the internet hype, and reveal why some of the most viral, at-home whitening hacks are fundamentally destructive.
They really are.
So, okay, let's unpack this because there is a genuine, widespread terror out there when it comes to teeth whitening.
Oh, absolutely.
People are just absolutely terrified of permanently destroying their enamel for the sake of aesthetics. And frankly, given that we only get one set of adult teeth, being highly protective of their structural integrity is a very logical instinct.
It is a completely logical instinct. I mean, nobody should trade long-term dental health for a short-term cosmetic boost.
Right, totally.
But what this clinical brief from Westbrook Family Dental highlights is that this widespread fear is rooted in a fundamental misunderstanding of the procedure itself.
Huh.
Yeah, people are avoiding professional care because they have the wrong mental model of what whitening actually does to a tooth.
The clinic has a great term for this specific misunderstanding, actually. They call it the sandpaper myth.
Yes, the sandpaper myth.
And it makes total sense why we default to this myth, because it's based on how we, interact with the rest of the physical world.
Right, our everyday experience.
Yeah. If you have a scuff mark on your hardwood floor, you sand it down. If you have a dirty cast iron skillet, you take a scouring pad to it. We have this deeply ingrained heuristic that cleaning requires friction.
Exactly. We just assume that to remove a stain, we must physically scrape away the top layer of material to reveal the fresh, clean layer underneath.
Right.
We naturally equate cleanliness with physical abrasion.
But if I'm taking that intuition into the dentist chair, my immediate assumption is that the dentist is applying some harsh chemical that, eats away the outer surface of my tooth.
Which sounds awful.
Right. But if they aren't sanding down the tooth, and they obviously aren't just painting a layer of white out over the grime, what is actually happening?
What's fascinating here is that the clinical reality contradicts our everyday physical intuition entirely.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The brief is unequivocal on this point. Professional dental bleach does not strip, dissolve, or wear down your enamel in any capacity.
Not at all.
Not at all. The mineral composition of the tooth remains 100% intact. Not a single fraction of a millimeter is removed.
That's a counterintuitive concept.
Yeah.
I mean, if I have a coffee stain on my kitchen counter and I want it gone, I have to physically lift that stain off the surface.
Right.
If a dentist isn't removing a layer of the tooth and the stain is being scraped off the top, how does the tooth end up looking whiter?
Well, to understand that, we have to completely discard our macro-level view of what a tooth is.
Okay, so zoom in.
Exactly. To the naked eye, a tooth looks like a solid, impenetrable piece of white bone. But if we zoom into a microscopic level, the anatomy tells a very different story.
Okay, I'm following.
The outer layer of your tooth, the enamel, is not a solid wall. It is actually a microscopic crystal lattice made primarily of a mineral called hydroxyapatite.
So instead of a solid brick wall, it's more like a dense microscopic sponge.
Yeah, or think of it more like a frosted glass window.
Oh, okay.
It is incredibly hard, but crucially, it is translucent and it is highly porous.
Yeah.
Now, underneath that translucent enamel window is the core of the tooth, which is called the dentin.
Right.
And dentin naturally has a yellowish opaque hue.
Okay, so we have a yellowish core covered by a clear, porous, crystalline window. How do stains factor into that architecture?
Let's bring this into your daily routine. If you're sipping a cup of coffee right now while listening to this, or if you enjoy a glass of red wine in the evening.
Guilty as charged.
Right. Well, those liquids contain dark, heavily pigmented organic molecules. In clinical terms, these are known as chromogens.
Chromogens, okay.
And because your enamel is a porous lattice, those dark chromogens don't just sit on the smooth outer surface of your tooth. They seep down into the microscopic pores of the enamel, and they can even penetrate all the way down into the dentin.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The tooth isn't dirty on the outside.
Nope.
The dark colors are literally trapped inside the crystal structure. So we are looking through the clear window of the enamel and seeing the stains trapped inside the walls of the house.
That is the exact visualization you need.
Wow.
And once you understand that the stains are housed internally, you immediately see why the sandpaper myth falls apart.
Right, because you can't reach them.
Exactly. You cannot clean the inside of a house by power washing the outside of the window. Any physical friction applied to the surface of the tooth is fundamentally useless against a chromogen that is locked safely inside a microscopic pore.
Which means you can't scrub it out. You need a mechanism that is small enough to actually enter the lattice. Like, you need a chemical key that can slip through those microscopic pores, find the stain, and neutralize it without breaking the glass window to get inside.
Precisely. And that chemical key is the foundation of professional teeth whitening.
Okay.
The entire process relies on a specific chemical reaction called oxidation.
Let's get into the mechanics of that then. When a patient sits in the chair at Westbrook Family Dental, what is the actual compound being used to trigger this oxidation?
Dentists primarily utilize two types of professional-grade compounds, hydrogen peroxide or carbamide peroxide,
Okay.
and they are applied as a highly formulated gel.
Is there a functional difference between the two? I mean, why would a dentist choose carbamide over hydrogen peroxide?
It mostly comes down to stability and the speed of the release.
Okay, how so?
Well, hydrogen peroxide is very fast-acting. It breaks down and releases its oxidizing agents within a very short window, maybe 30 to 60 minutes, which makes it ideal for a fast in-chair procedure at the clinic.
Got it.
Carbamide peroxide, on the other hand, is essentially hydrogen peroxide compounded with urea.
So it's a more complex molecule.
Yes, and because of that, it breaks down much more slowly. It releases about a third of its peroxide power immediately, and the rest trickles out over the next few hours.
Oh, I see.
That makes carbamide peroxide the standard for take-home whitening trays where the patient might leave the gel on overnight. But regardless of which delivery method is used, the underlying mechanism once the gel enters the tooth is identical.
Okay, so this gel is applied, and because it's formulated correctly, it absorbs into those microscopic pores in the enamel lattice.
Right.
Once it's inside, how does it actually defeat the trapped chromogens without extracting them?
As the peroxide compound breaks down inside the tooth, it releases highly reactive oxygen molecules.
Okay.
These oxygen molecules migrate through the pores and actively seek out the dark chromogen molecules. Now, a chromogen is a complex organic compound, and it gets its dark color from specific structural features, usually long chains of alternating single and double carbon bonds.
And those specific bonds are what absorb light and make the stain look dark to the human eye.
Exactly right. When the reactive oxygen molecules encounter these chromogens, they initiate an oxidation reaction.
Which does what?
Oxidation literally attacks and breaks those double carbon bonds. It cleaves the large, complex, dark-colored molecule into much smaller, simpler molecules.
So it's fundamentally altering the physical structure of the stain itself.
Yes, and in chemistry, when you break those specific conjugated double bonds, you drastically change the way that molecule interacts with light.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the newly formed smaller molecules no longer absorb visible light. They shift their absorption spectrum.
So the stain doesn't actually leave the tooth, it just stops reflecting color.
The physical matter of the stain is still there, but it has been rendered entirely colorless. It becomes invisible.
That is wild.
It really is.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this precise molecular targeting is exactly why professional peroxide treatments are so safe.
Right, because it only targets the stain.
Exactly. The oxygen molecules only react with the organic stain molecules. They do not react with the inorganic hydroxyapatite crystals that make up your enamel. So the entire structural integrity of the tooth remains untouched, while the internal stains are simply switched off.
That is a wildly elegant chemical solution. It completely dismantles the idea that whitening is a harsh, destructive process. You aren't eroding the tooth, you are just sending a targeted chemical messenger inside to alter how the trapped debris absorbs light.
Exactly.
But that elegant, safe science stands in massive contrast to the trends we see going viral online.
Oh, the clinical brief is highly critical of the DIY internet trends. And the science of oxidation shows us exactly why.
Yeah.
The methods being pushed by influencers are not just ineffective, they are actively destructive.
We're talking about the thick black activated charcoal paste. We're talking about people mixing baking soda and lemon juice into a slurry and
Yeah.
scrubbing their teeth with it.
Yep.
And I think people see immediate visible results from these hacks and assume they've found a cheap, natural alternative to the dentist.
They see a temporary Brayton effect, but they don't understand the physical cost. These DIY methods do not utilize oxidation. They rely entirely on abrasion.
Which brings us back to the sandpaper.
Right, they are taking the sandpaper myth and turning it into a terrifying reality. The brief explicitly describes charcoal toothpaste as acting like liquid sandpaper on your teeth.
So when someone brushes with charcoal, it's abrasive enough to scrape away the surface-level plaque and maybe a few superficial coffee stains that haven't absorbed into the pores yet.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why their teeth look temporarily cleaner. But what is that liquid sandpaper doing to the actual crystal lattice?
It is aggressively wearing it down. Every time you scrub with a highly abrasive substance like charcoal or baking soda, you are physically stripping away microscopic layers of your enamel.
Oh, no.
You are permanently grinding down that clear, protective window.
So what does this all mean for the person diligently brushing with charcoal every single morning to get a white smile?
It means they are trapped in a tragic physical irony.
How so?
Remember, our anatomical model, the outer enamel, is a translucent white, and the inner dentin core is naturally yellow and opaque.
Right.
As you continuously scrub away your white enamel with abrasive charcoal, you make that outer layer thinner and thinner.
Oh, I see where this is going. If the white window gets thinner, the yellow core becomes more visible.
Precisely. By trying to scrub their teeth white, they are irreversibly exposing the yellow dentin underneath.
That is awful.
Their teeth will become permanently and stubbornly yellow, and no amount of surface scrubbing will fix it because they've destroyed the white layer.
And what about the lemon juice hacks? Because people mix baking soda with lemon juice to create a paste.
That combination is even worse.
Worse than charcoal.
Oh, yeah. Lemon juice is highly acidic. When you introduce a strong acid to the tooth, it demineralizes the hydroxyapatite crystals. It temporarily softens the enamel. So if you apply an acid to soften the lattice and then immediately scrub it with an abrasive like baking soda, you are accelerating the destruction of your enamel exponentially.
You're literally dissolving the tooth and then sanding it away.
Yes. And beyond the cosmetic disaster of permanently yellow teeth, stripping away the enamel removes your tooth's primary defense mechanism.
Right, because it's a shield.
Exactly. The dentin layer underneath is full of microscopic nerve endings. When that dentin is exposed, the patient is going to experience severe chronic sensitivity to hot and cold temperatures.
This raises an important point about consumer psychology, I think. We are so easily convinced that if an ingredient is natural, like charcoal or a lemon, it must be safe.
Oh, definitely.
And if something is a chemical like peroxide, it must be dangerous. But in the context of dentistry, the natural abrasives are brutal and permanent, while the synthetic chemical oxidation is gentle and preserves the anatomy.
This raises an important question for anyone navigating health trends. Are we evaluating the actual mechanism of action or just the marketing buzzwords?
That's a great point.
Professional clinics prioritize long-term structural health. They rely on controlled chemical reactions because they understand the microscopic anatomy of the tooth.
Which brings us to the actual application process. Even if a listener understands that they need oxidation instead of abrasion, they might be tempted to just buy a heavy-duty peroxide kit from the pharmacy and do it themselves.
Sure, yeah.
So how does the professional approach at a clinic like Westbrook Family Dental differ from an over-the-counter boxed kit?
The primary differences lie in the delivery system and the specific formulation of the compound. Oxidation is incredibly safe for the hard tissue of your tooth, but peroxide is highly irritating to the soft tissues of your mouth, specifically your gums.
Right, because the gums aren't a crystal lattice. They are exposed soft tissue.
Exactly. Over-the-counter kits usually rely on generic boil and bite plastic trays. You heat them up, bite into them, and hope they mold to your teeth.
Which they never really do perfectly.
Right. They are notoriously imprecise. They leave gaps and they don't form a proper seal. When you load that tray with peroxide gel, it leaks out and sits on your gum line.
And what happens when a reactive oxidizing agent sits on soft tissue for an hour?
It causes localized chemical burns.
Yikes.
Yeah, the tissue turns white, it becomes highly inflamed, and it is incredibly painful. Professional clinics eliminate this risk through precision.
How so?
A dentist will take an exact impression or a digital scan of your unique dental arch. They fabricate a custom-fit tray that locks flush against the tooth and forms a tight seal at the gum line.
Oh, that makes sense.
So the peroxide is held exactly where it is needed against the enamel and is kept entirely away from the soft tissue.
So professional oversight isn't just about giving you a stronger chemical. It's about controlling the environment so the chemical only interacts with the target.
Precisely.
But what about internal sensitivity? You mentioned earlier that the peroxide gel travels deep into the pores all the way to the dentin. Doesn't the core of the tooth contain the nerve?
It does. The very center of the tooth is the pulp chamber, which houses the nerves and blood vessels.
Okay.
The dentin surrounding it is filled with thousands of microscopic channels called dentinal tubules, which lead directly to that nerve.
Right.
When the oxygen molecules from the bleach travel through those tubules, it can temporarily alter the fluid pressure inside them, which stimulates the nerve and causes that sharp, zingy pain some people experience during whitening.
I hate that feeling. If the peroxide has to reach the dentin to neutralize the deep stains, how does a professional formulation prevent that nerve pain?
Well, this is the second major advantage of clinical-grade formulas. Professional gels are compounded with built-in desensitizing agents, primarily potassium nitrate and fluoride.
How do those actually work? Are they just numbing the tooth like an anesthetic?
It's a targeted neurological block. Potassium nitrate is a small salt molecule that travels through the exact same enamel pores and dentinal tubules as the peroxide.
Okay.
When it reaches the nerve inside the pulp, it prevents the nerve endings from repolarizing.
So it interrupts the electrical signal. The nerve literally cannot fire a pain message to the brain.
Exactly. It blocks the transmission of pain entirely.
That is brilliant.
Yeah. And meanwhile, the fluoride in the formula works on a structural level. It remineralizes the enamel lattice, temporarily plugging the microscopic pores to reduce fluid movement and further protect the nerve.
Wow.
So the oxygen bubbles are doing the work of dismantling the chromogens, while the potassium nitrate keeps the nerve quiet and the fluoride reinforces the lattice. It is a highly orchestrated, multi-tiered chemical process that over-the-counter kits simply cannot replicate.
That level of detail completely changes the way you look at dental care. I mean,
Yeah.
It isn't just aesthetic maintenance. It is highly precise medical chemistry.
It really is.
We have covered a tremendous amount of ground today, and I think the sandpaper myth has been thoroughly dismantled. Let's recap the critical takeaways for the listener.
That's good.
First, step away from the viral DIY hacks. Activated charcoal, baking soda, and lemon juice are liquid sandpaper.
Yes.
They do not whiten your teeth. They actively grind away your clear enamel and permanently expose the yellow dentin underneath.
Second, remember the anatomy of your enamel. It is a translucent, porous, crystal lattice. Stains are not sitting on the surface. They are trapped deep inside the microscopic structure.
Right. And because of that, you have to trust the science of oxidation. Professional peroxide compounds are the only safe way to reach those stains.
Exactly.
They send reactive oxygen molecules into the pores to cleave the carbon bonds of the stains, rendering them invisible without altering a single mineral of your actual tooth structure.
Absolutely.
If you've been avoiding a brighter smile out of a genuine fear that a dentist is going to strip your enamel, or if you've been scrubbing your teeth raw with household abrasives to save money, you now have the scientific clarity to rethink your approach. You can protect your structural health and get the aesthetic results you want.
But, diving this deep into how perfectly our teeth absorb the environment around us does leave me with one final, broader thought.
No, does that?
Well, given that our enamel is highly porous by design, and it is constantly absorbing dark chromogens from almost everything we consume, our coffee, our tea, our berries, our sauces.
Basically everything good.
Right. It makes you wonder about the long-term trajectory of consumer habits. If society continues to prioritize this modern obsession with perfectly bright white smiles, could it eventually force a massive redesign of the food and beverage industry?
Wait, you mean engineering out the chromogens entirely?
Exactly. Are we pushing toward a future of artificially clear, stain-free diets, like colorless coffees and transparent wines, just so we never have to worry about our crystal lattice absorbing the colors of our meals?
A completely clear cup of morning coffee just to bypass the enamel pores.
Yeah.
It sounds like science fiction, but honestly, considering the lengths people currently go to and the damage they do with charcoal and acid just to keep those microscopic windows clean, maybe a transparent diet isn't so far-fetched.
It really makes you think.
It does. It turns out protecting your smile isn't about the friction you apply to the surface. It's about understanding the complex chemistry happening deep inside. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.